Hi, Kieran. Thanks for joining me today on the Financial Planner Life podcast. As per my introduction, ex-footballer turned financial planner, and today it's really about finding out about your journey from professional football into financial planning, and perhaps sort of telling us a little bit about the career of a footballer and where financial planning might well be missing. And just really your experience so far around financial planning and why really you think that's the career for you. As mentioned previously, the Financial Planner Life podcast is all about raising the profile of financial planning to get more people into the industry. Exports, etc., is a really big thing for financial planners. They love it when they come from rugby or football or golf, because of the networking and all that kind of stuff, and obviously the team mentality. But hopefully you're going to give us a bit more insight into why that is and the realities, and it might hopefully inspire some ex-professional sportsmen, footballers, whatever, to take up a career in financial planning. So thanks very much for joining me today. How are you, mate?
Yeah, really good, thanks, Sam. Yeah, it's good to be here. So it's been a bit of a strange year for everyone at the minute, but I'm great, thanks. Yeah.
Wicked, brilliant, fantastic. So when you say like been a bit of a strange year, weird year so far, how have you dealt with the whole COVID situation and lockdown? Because you are very early on in your career, and something like this coming along must have knocked you for six, or were you?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Totally took everyone by surprise, and I was starting out at the beginning of this year, really, in my new career after qualifying last year. So I just took the approach as, you can take it one way or another, really. You can either just, let it impact you, or you can look at solutions and look at how you're going to move forward from that point, and I chose the latter, really. So I think I've tried to use social media as a strong platform for, pushing my brand and what I'm trying to do within the space that I'm in. And it's paid off, and obviously a slow burner at times on social media at the start, but the more recognition you get, the more testimonials and things like that. It's been a good source of business, really. And it's one of those things where, you bring up the sporting background and overcoming challenges, but that's all was my mindset. It was a challenge, and that's one of the reasons why I went into this industry and retrained last year, is because I wanted to take the direction and, the different challenges that come with that, and, growing your own business, really.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, absolutely echo you with the social media side of it. I've massively upped my social media game as well. I think we had really no choice, did we? It was an opportunity to jump on it.
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't know if you, but I've just found it so powerful. Like I always from running Recruit UK, I've always been quite heavily into the marketing side of it, but I've never really focused on my own personal brand. And in the last 3 months, I've been like putting videos out all the time. I built the Financial Planner Life podcast. I was always thinking to myself, well, how can I get out to as many people as possible, and how can I get as many people knowing who I am without coming across as a bit of a dick or a bit of a salesperson?
Yeah,
so I was kind of like,
it's that fine line. Yeah,
it's a fine line, and I think I'm still treading it. Yeah, but someone said to me, actually, like a personal brander said to me, Sam, you've got to be Marmite. People have either got to like you or dislike you. You can't go out there hoping that everybody's going to like you, because it's completely unrealistic, and then you'll never really be
almost
yourself.
Watered down at that point.
Yeah, you're just not being yourself. And at the end of the day, and I think when it comes to social media, it's authenticity, isn't it? It's about being your true self. And some people like you and some people don't, and that's cool, man. And hopefully the people that like you buy from you. And that's
definitely. Key. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. Yeah.
Amazing. So, Kieran, let's talk a little bit about your career prior to being a financial planner. Obviously, I put out on social media that I was really keen to talk to ex-sporting professionals because a lot of companies within financial planning seem to want ex-sporting professionals to join them. And I looked at your profile, you were tagged away in the comments, and your background is professional football. So can you tell us a little bit about your career as a professional footballer?
Yeah, so, it was a short-lasted one. I'm only 24 years old now. I left school at 16, if you like, take on the scholarship with a professional contract on top of that. And I was loving life, really enjoyed it. I was a very sort of dedicated player. Mindset was all there, diet, you name it. The model pro, if you like, was sort of my mentality and how I got to that point, really. And I continued to do that. And obviously it got to a point of negotiating new contracts, etc. And I was on the verge of getting a new deal. All great, family's excited by it, and it's that next step onto sort of your second or third professional contract. And quite a few things went on at a time at the club that I was at, and I ended up getting the offer retracted as such. So I didn't get my contract renewed as I was approaching 20 years old. So my contract ran out in the July-August time, and I was 20 in that September, and it was a bit of a rabbit in the headlights, if you like. It was a bit of a shock to me. I hadn't been out of the team, and everything was going great in my eyes. I was building my career, and it was my identity as a footballer that I've been known as from 8-9 years of age, where you've gone through the ranks, and all of a sudden overnight you've got to show yourself again. And I ended up going on. I did have quite a few clubs interested in me at the time. Went on a few trials at some of the bigger Premier League clubs with their under 23s, and it was a difficult period for myself. I'd had quite a few things off the field as I was growing up as a teenager, that I dealt with my problems through football. That was my getaway, really. It was my driving force for being successful, if you like. And when football became the issue, where it never had been in my life, I really struggled. It almost opened up those old wounds, and it was a very difficult,
your identity. Yeah, that was your identity.
It was a very difficult time. Emotionally, I struggled. It's the self-pity you get in as such as well. When I was on the trial games, I'm like, I was captain of a team at this level, 6 weeks ago, now I'm having to prove myself to again and again and again. And it just wore me down really mentally, and struggled off the pitch. And I had to move back up from London to my family home. When you've been living away for a long period of time, that's difficult. I hadn't had many school friends around the area where my parents was, because I was away most of my childhood playing down in London. So it was a really difficult period for me. But that's sort of how my journey ended, playing at the club I was at here over in England. And then I was playing sort of the lower leagues, and I just sort of had a bit of a breakdown, if you like, on the pitch. I just completely broke down, just had enough. And I ended up a few weeks later deciding to go to America, and it wasn't quite running away, if you like, but it was just what I needed. I needed a complete fresh start. And I just didn't see me being in the lower leagues in England and scrapping there and potentially having a part-time job, or just ending up in the leagues. And you're not, that dream of being a footballer, that's not what it looked like for me. If I wasn't going to play in the top couple of leagues, it just wasn't going to be for me. And I realised that quite quickly through the style of player I was and the opportunities I was getting. And so I just went out to America. I had an eye on business and started studying business over there. And then there was another bit of a whirlwind over there as well, which is why I ended up back here 18 months ago. If you want me to go into a bit more detail about
that's cool. Then let me just sort of ask you some questions all around that then, if that's all right with you. That's so fine, you in the UK then, you were a youth player then when you first got into West Ham, is that right?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, so I signed on, the youth age at 16, and then my professional contract on from there. So I was, a young professional for a few years there.
So when you join as a youth at 16, and you mentioned there you sign up and you go onto a contract, you're contracted to only play for West Ham, and what do they do? Do they pay you a salary at that age?
So at that age, it's, you step onto your scholarship, so you can't sign professional terms until you're 17 in the earliest instance. But a lot of the time you do scholarships, and then you go professional at 18 as such, and that's sort of what happened with me. So, you were excited by the four-year period that I had sort of lined up. And when you're leaving school, it's great. It's all what you dreamt of. And I was always positive for me, because I was never one that was waiting for contracts or things to get renewed when I was a youth player, because it was just already there. It wasn't even thought about, because I was just moving in the right direction, really. So when I did get the news, and the contract wasn't there anymore, it was just a bit of a surprise. There was no feedback with it at all, really. It was just like, you're not in the manager's plans, that's it.
That would have
I'd
been
been there for 10 years and I had no support from them at all at the time when I left, and I ended up coming up to Manchester at the time, and I trained at Man United for a month with the old reserve manager there. And, they put me in touch with more clubs to give me opportunities when they didn't offer me a contract than my original employers did, and I've been there for 10 years. So it's one of those where you'd learn quite early, and that's probably different things like that are going to help me with the future of my own business, I think.
So when you were younger, then a lot younger, and you were playing football. I played a lot of football when I was younger.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I could have played for England.
Yeah.
I think my dad said that once. It was the most embarrassing thing I ever heard. But when did you actually know that you were good enough
to
actually have a career in it? At what age were you, and how did it come about? I'm really interested in that.
I think it's just a good question, really, because you don't really think about it at the time. You just enjoy playing. And I'd probably say when I was about 13, it became a bit more serious for me. Like, I was thinking, the stuff that I was getting, who I was speaking to, how the club was acting with me. I lost a close friend when I was a young teenager as well. Probably my best friend, which was a real driving force for me at that time. Where, as you're getting older, I just sacrificed everything. That was literally it. No going out, no anything. It was just football, focused on that because it's what I loved and what I was good at. So that's when it became a bit more serious from that age. And, it's quite difficult for people to understand, it's where, see young players get opportunities now. When I see it, I think, people just see, they've been training for a year or two. No, they've been sacrificing from them and their families from the age of 8, 9, 10, and they're getting some reward at the end of it. I know there's hundreds of players that aren't, or there's certain types of rewards, and then there's obviously you're gonna have some have careers in the games, but not to the extent of the Premier League players and the top Championship players. So that reward is just people can disagree, but I think it's there through like a 10-year period. It's like anyone in business. People see, he's done really well, it's an overnight success. Well, it's not. It's been a long time, and there's a lot of difficult bits on the road. So I started seeing that as I was a teenager, and really became a bit more serious about I can have a career here. And then I had no other vision of anything else. That was it. That was me. I'm going to have a career in the game.
And were you surrounded by people? So obviously acknowledging your fact that your friend died as well there, which then obviously had an impact on your life. And it sounds like, to me, making assumptions, that you threw yourself into the sport as a kind of almost a bit of a coping mechanism there for you as well. Gave you some focus, as you mentioned. Obviously sad to hear that. That's pretty awful.
Course, I think obviously it affects you quite a lot at that age. And, it does.
How old were you? 13 then, were you?
13, yeah. So it was like on the week of my birthday. So I was 13. So that takes quite a lot of impact. And, a lot of people don't understand it at the time, or don't see these emotional problems when you're growing up. But I didn't really have any, because I was just so focused on football, and my outward, how I played and was through, that was probably my emotional release, if you like. When I look back at it, I didn't think it at the time. I did things for him, if I celebrated when I scored and things like that. But it was just purely, this is it. This is what I'm doing. It's a dog environment. It causes you anyway, football. So when I had that, it was just fully focused on that.
It helps you achieve that vision and that focus. Definitely, so when you say, because, and you actually raise a really good point there. Like, I mean, some of these guys are getting into football at such a young age. They're getting picked up by scouts at such a young age. Yeah. And the expectation that is then upon their shoulders to perform. Now, I always remember playing football and having the mums and the dads on the side of the pitch. Some of the things they would say or speak, or how they would sort of berate their child or whatever, or another kid. And these are like children, aren't they?
Definitely.
Playing football. Did you find that the pressure upon you at that young age to perform to this professional level was it, some people I could imagine will crumble under that pressure. I wasn't a massive fan of it. I was the guy who would turn around and say, up yours to the person who's saying something on the pitch. I wasn't very good at that. I was like, how dare you speak to me like that? But some people just block it out and ignore it. Do you think that pressure can sometimes destroy some younger players, or, very early on? Because you mentioned you don't have much of a childhood because you're just flat out playing football. It's like, some people say, my childhood was like that. But actually, really, some people must be quite struggle.
Yeah, I mean, it is, it's a sacrifice that, it seems like you have to make at the time. And I never felt any pressure when I was playing growing up through the ranks. It was just, I loved playing football and I was dedicated to that. I was one of those that thrived under the pressure. I liked that. I did at the time when I was a young player, and when I was gotten to being a professional, it was something that I really enjoyed. Fully focused. I can do this. This is what I want to be doing. So, but when I look back at it, probably there's some young lads that are thrusted in that do struggle with it and find it pressured. Being in that environment, and they're not quite the personalities. And I feel like that's where the transition into different workspaces needs to be looked at earlier as well with players. Sort of that age from 16 onwards. Obviously, there's that you have to be tunnel visioned. I'm still tunnel visioned with what I do now. That's what I want to do and what I want to achieve. But it's almost, if there is players that aren't going to have futures, then you need to start picking up on what their attributes are, because that's what it seems like. If you fail as a footballer, and that's your identity growing up, and that was what I struggled with the most when I left. Well, when I called it a day, sort of at 22, when I was playing, it was just 22, 23. It was just that was my identity. People would be asking about you. You go to family dues or you go to see old friends. They wouldn't ask how you were first. It would be, how's the football? How's the game last week? Yeah. It wouldn't be with other family members where they go, oh, how was your job this week? Doing whatever you do. They wouldn't go that. They'd be like, how are you? How's everyone? It would be, because it does become a job at some point. When you left school, etc. It was a job. You can say what you like about it, your passion, but it still is what you do. You just want to talk to people when you're done. You don't want to hear, how was work every time. As a young person, that's quite difficult.
Yeah, have you found the same happens? Because as a business owner, people are like that with me. How's business? They always say, how's business? And it's just like, can we talk about something else? But have you found that since you've become a financial planner running your own business?
Yeah, I think people just go, how's business doing? How's that? But I feel like now they do ask me more how I am, etc., than they did when I was playing. That contrast is still there, because people get excited about football. That's the difference, and they just want to hear about it because they're not involved in it. Not many people are in playing, etc. So no, it's for me now. It's quite nice not to have that. That's something that I quite like.
So when you were playing football then, also, and I've recently spoke to a professional basketball player who, he was like the number one basketball player in the UK and went to America. Now, we were talking about the state of the UK when it comes to professional sports, especially football, because, I mean, again, some guys can be picked up at the age of 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever. And then Rooney was like 16, wasn't he, when he was playing?
Yeah, in first team, he was young,
first team. Yeah, it's crazy. And like in the UK, there isn't any kind of education that runs alongside like professional sport that I'm aware of. It certainly isn't in football.
Yeah.
Whereas like when he went to the States, like he got a scholarship. So his parents like couldn't afford the scholarship. He got out to America and they paid for like 5 years for like 30 grand a year to do the scholarship.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
And then played college basketball, did all of that. And then got to the stage where he was hopefully going to get like picked for the NBA, and he wasn't tall enough. But he had this, he had this education piece to fall back on. Although he kind of came back to the UK, did some basketball and stuff, he still had this education piece. Yeah.
I think that's something. Yeah, I went to the States to do the same thing. You see, so
cool.
I decided to call it day at West Ham. I was 20, 21. I went over to America to study business and play. And for me, it wasn't as much about the football because I was almost done with it at this point. I went out to America when I was about 20 and had an eye on business, and I had to get away. I didn't see the lower leagues here, and having that education was something that I was looking at, and my parents sort of said, all right, if you're going to do something, do that. So I got everything paid for. We won the national championship, etc. And I started enjoying my football again. I started really just enjoying playing, and I thought, oh, you know what, I probably owe it to myself to just have one more stab at it, if you like. So I spoke to my coach at the time and talked about going to one of the biggest universities to help me get in the draft, pretty much. So, you know, I spoke to quite some of the top universities out there, and I was moving to a place called Clemson University in South Carolina. And anyway, long story short, there's regulations and rules out there about your time as a professional and stuff like that. And I'd been banned for 6 months when I first went out there, which for me was fine because I was studying. I needed to get back into things like that and just enjoying myself out there. And then I went to move, and the documentary that I was on, No Hunger in Paradise, came out over here on BT Sport and was quite a big hit at the time with Mike Calvin. And a few months later, I was going to transfer to this university, and great business school, which was great for me for if I finished playing in a year, which was it then. And then also they can help you get in the draft, great facilities, you know, just enjoy playing for whether it was a last year, then fantastic. And just that's it, your last year. So that it was so appealing to me, you know, ticked every box, new challenge, etc. And anyway, I've gone to probably about a week or two before I was going to fly down to South Carolina. Come up on the website that I've been banned from competing out there in the university system. So obviously I was a bit confused by it all. Long story short, there'd been a complaint from an opposition manager about me playing out there. The one that we beat in the national final made an official complaint, and they said, you know, a few words didn't match up from 2 or 3 years ago when you're filling out a form. So ended up getting sports lawyers involved.
Really?
I got voted against 3-2 on the final panel. And that pretty much meant I couldn't compete. So therefore I couldn't get my scholarship for the universities. So I was literally in between the two. Where I was at, sort of, they were more concerned about their national title not being, you know, removed from them for fielding an eligible player. And where I was going had their hands tied because I wasn't their player or their student. So I had to come back to England a year and a half before I finished my degree. I was 23 at that point. So about 18 months ago, landed at my parents' house. 23, career done now playing. I was just, after obviously all the 2 setbacks with it and no degree and no qualifications, I had, you know, just my GCSEs at the time. And it was a real hard time for me. You know, it was a struggle where I couldn't deal with it. You know, I had a bit of a really hard time with it, and I just had to, you know, suck it up, and I had to look at things from, you know, step back and sort of reevaluate. And my parents helped me out a lot, and they just said, well, you know, it's time to really, if you want to be successful and achieve again, you've got to find something that you're passionate about, and, you know, you've got to push yourself again. Because for me, I never had the makeup to, at this point, to go, right, I'm going to work a 9 till 5. For me personally, I couldn't have, you know, someone sort of over me all the time telling me what to do. I had to take the reins of my own life and the direction, because it had been controlled by people for so long. You know, and it sort of taught me that I wanted to do something where I can help people as well. You know, not be in a position that I got into at that point. You know, I'd whittled down my savings from when I was playing. And yeah, I just had to look at new career paths, really.
So what it absolutely tells me, your experience of working in football, that it's very unpredictable.
Yeah.
You know, being a footballer, you know, we sit back and we think, look at them out there having a kick about and you know, and earning all their money and all of that. And what people don't really see is that struggle and that, you know, moving around contracts. I mean, contracts are a difficult thing, aren't they? Because you're signing with somebody for what, a year or whatever, or
2 years,
2 years, depending upon how long that contract is. So not only that, but you've got the added pressure of everyone around you and other youth players coming along, and you know that in its own right can be a motivator, but it's also an external pressure at such a young age, at such a high standard to have to deal with. So, I mean, it's a tough. You know, being a professional sports person is tough, and I don't know what the numbers are, but not everybody makes it. Even if you get into your West Ham and sign for West Ham or Arsenal.
I think, you're spot on. I think on that documentary, Michael Calvin, the author, mentioned it actually. I think to sign a professional contract at a Premier League club, so something I did, is like a 0.01% chance of doing. You know, and I was part of that percent, that 0.01, and I've not got a career in the game. 2 or 3 years later, and that's just what it is. And I speak to friends every day, and they're in between contracts now, some of them, and some clients are concerned about what's next, and they have that constantly. And where people say, oh, what's tougher? I studied in the States at university, and I look at different people's mentalities when I've come into the workplace, and sports tough. Sports really tough. I see some of them go through mentally, and they see, some of them will be rewarded with good contracts, etc. now, but it is tough, to make a career in it. And that's why I think, we spoke about before, where so many athletes that can step into new careers, I'm sure, and be successful.
Absolutely. So, okay, great. So you got into football, boyhood dream, put all your focus into it. You got to the percentage of people that actually get to play for a decent team. You were that person. You got contracts. I mean, that's achievements in its own right. It didn't go the way it was hoping to go. You went through lots of difficulties, lots of stresses and lots of strains. You probably learned a huge amount about the industry as you went through it. Agents, for example, probably, difficult to deal with different types of agents, negotiating contracts, people having your best interests at heart. You went through your own mental health problems by the sounds of it whilst you were playing football. You then, as you've come out of that and you've decided to hang up your boots, pardon the pun.
No, it's true. I didn't want to say it.
You literally hung up your boots at the age of 23, did you?
23, yeah. So when I came back from the States and played there, I had a few opportunities to look, do you really want to keep playing? And I was just like, I don't want to do it at the lower level, like non-league, how some of them do it and try and work their ways back up. It just wasn't for me personally, and people can look at that as one way or the other, but I just felt like I had more to offer as a person and as an individual. So I did. Since then, I've not touched a ball since I called it. No. I'm not even like five-a-side or anything. I've not played at all. And no, people say, oh, you could have, played on Saturday and earned a bit of money each week. And I just said, well, for me, it was, I wanted to be a professional player. I wanted to train every day and get better and improve and play in front of people, etc. So for me, that's not what I wanted to do. It'd gone, that boyhood sort of just fun of it has gone, and I wanted to focus on something else, and I had to find something. Like I said, when people ask me now, do I miss football? No, I miss the process and everything of getting better to achieve what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. And some people find it hard to understand that, but I've taken that mentality now into what I do,
Brilliant. Well, okay, let's talk about that then, because you obviously got a football career there. You've learned a lot about football and you've learned a lot about the structure. You've been a player yourself. You understand the network itself as the football community, how it all works. So huge amount of experience that is definitely 100% transferable, let alone all the skills that go with being a footballer, which we're going to touch on, because I want to learn more about that and really, are they transferable? Like, as a recruitment company, he's always been like, do you do any sports? Put it on your CV because it looks good. But it's like, well, in what way does it really look good? And I'd love to understand that professional element and see where that sits. But your background, your experience have always fab. So you chose then, you decided to hang up your boots. And at that point you were thinking, right, I want to do something myself. I want to do something for me. I don't want to play football anymore. I want to get into a brand new profession. Yeah. So what was your next step? How did it all happen?
It wasn't really a step, that's where it's at. And the reality was, I went back to my parents. My closest friend that I went to school with, he's a pilot out in Berlin, so wasn't around. All my other friends were playing for different clubs around the country because they're all players still. And then my other close friend from school, he was traveling, as you do in your early 20s, I think. So for me, it was I was isolated, that's what it was at. It was literally, it's down to you now. You can speak to people, look opportunities, but you've got to see what you wanted to do. So bottom line of it, whilst I was sort of looking at what I wanted to do, I just went and knocked at a friend's engineering company just in local to me, and I said, well, I'm looking at different options. I need just a job to get me out, just for my mental health more than anything. It wasn't just about getting a bit of money each month. It was purely just give me something to get me out, and he just looked at me like, the director, he'd obviously known me from when I was a kid growing up playing, and he was just like, sure, because you're not skilled, you're gonna do something that's that's crap pretty much, So it was like October, November time, and I just literally went lifting metal for him for like, it's from 8, 9 in the morning till 5, 6 at night, minus temperatures at times, and it was brutal. From 3 years before I played at Old Trafford, and then you've gone to that. It's just a huge reality check of you can have all that, but this is where you're at now. This is where you need to get yourself out of. And so I was speaking to a number of people at the time through a few connections, etc. And I spoke to someone at St James's Place that I knew sort of from previous experience, and they were like, right, well, you've got the option of London or Manchester, come up and have a chat. And I was just thinking, is this for me? I've not worn a suit apart from an awards night before and things like that. They were like, you've got to come in a suit, etc. And as you can see, I'm not in a suit now.
Yeah, no.
So I'm not quite report to that. But anyway, so long story short, it spoke to me about sort of the opportunities and the resilience needed and just how you were. And I was reading through it. I spoke to a few family friends that had been working at the bank and stuff. My uncle had worked at a bank for years, and just like, it's a good opportunity, to retrain. They'll put you through it, but there was no guarantees. I had to get a business plan together, had to go through the interview process, and I was still working. So I was literally getting the train up to Manchester, working, but like all the time. So it was flexible because where I'd gone to get the job for a couple of months.
Let me just stop you there. So you were still working whilst you were going through the St James's Place Academy?
No. So just the interview process at the start. So I was working, and obviously you have to get your RO1 at the time before you get on to like the interview process. So I was studying for that in the evening. So I was literally working, in the day, just slogging for a couple of months and studying at night and repeating. I was just studying until like 12, 1 in the morning, and I had no understanding of any of it. I'd not picked a book up properly since I was 15, and that's just where it was, but I wanted to do it. So that's what I had my mind on it now. This is what I wanted to do. I made the decision, I'm going to do it. And obviously I managed to get through the interview process, and they really liked me at the academy, and they took me on, and so I'd be starting in the new year. So I obviously just stuck that job in. And
so you
went on to the academy at the start of last year, yeah.
So during that interview process, so just so our listeners understand how that academy worked, then you had to go through the St James's Place Academy. You'd had to have done your RO1 off your own back.
Yeah, so you do the RO1 after you've you've finished the interview process. And then you do all the others. You do the RO2, 3, 4, 5, etc. over like a 6-9 month period. And for me, it was difficult. I found it hard. I had to, where other people have done exams before from professional backgrounds, every page I turned was completely new to me. It was really difficult, and I failed a few exams. There's no doubt about it. I did, and I just knew I had to put more hours and more time working at it. They questioned, are you going to be okay through it? And I said, listen, I want to do it. I will do it. You can give me the time. And they did. They gave me that time because they believed in me here, which was great to hear. Have people believe in you. And yeah, I just was, sometimes I was there 6, 7 in the morning before we started our day of practical learning, and because I was behind on an exam. But like I said, it is just purely, I had my mind to it. That's what I wanted to do, and I really didn't care whether I was the first to pass it or the last. It was just, this is what I'm going to do, so I'm
going to get through it. So being, again, making assumptions here, but are you a naturally academic person or not?
I never struggled at school. So I went to school obviously like 2-3 days a week when I was from 13 to 16. I got A's and B's in all my GCSEs, etc. So I never struggled academically at all, really. But it was the different level of academics from what I parked 5, 6, 7 years before, whatever it was. So it was totally new to me, and I managed to get through it and learning all the time still, as you do.
So when you went through those qualifications then, the ROs, through the academy, what sort of support were you, obviously you've done the academy through St James's Place, so anybody's listening, Kieran's went through the St James's Place Academy. He's now working for a partner practice of St James's Place. So just give our listeners an overview of, if someone's listening to this now, perhaps they're coming from a sporting background, perhaps they're thinking about their first step into financial advice or transferring from another career.
Hmm.
What was it, what is that academy actually like, and what should they expect?
Yeah, so it's a lot of classroom based stuff. You're with about 15 other people that have been accepted on through, and they've whittled it down through X amount. And you have sort of a manager at the time. It helps you through with exams, any extra support you need. They support you through all the exams. You have all we go through pretty much page to page in the classroom, learning all the different details about whether it's tax or investments, etc. And then pretty much you learn the practical side of the job, the client facing stuff at the back end of the course, and you do role plays, etc. So they try and prepare you the best they can. Obviously, as we all know, it's a lot different when you step out into the field as such, but it helps prepare you that in different ways. And for me, it was getting the exams, and I would have been a different outcome, I think, if I hadn't had that support in the academy for what I was going through with the exams last year. So that's what helped me personally.
Yeah, I started years ago, the FPC1. I used to be a trainer for Aviva, so I used to train out bonds, investment products, and all that type of stuff with the joint venture with the RBS. And it was like really, really difficult, like learning about all different taxes and legislation. And I'm not even doing it from an advice perspective to give advice. This is just to train people. And it was intense. And at the time, I had like tapes, so I'd like listen to tapes on the way to work. And trying to soak it in. And I'm not a naturally academic person. I found it really, really, really hard. And I think if I was to myself, I always think and I always quite admire those people that do they're studying their qualifications whilst like perhaps doing the administration route, power planning route, and then becoming a financial advisor. Or you've got this other route, which is like the academy. And I think I would need the academy. I would need to be surrounded by tutors. I would need to have people that can talk me through it. And I can do a bit of my study and a bit of role playing. I'd have to be fully immersed in it to really get it, because otherwise I would find it hard to pick my book up and start doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I was like. And I spoke to you before, just earlier in the pod, and I was just like, well, I'm fully focused. I'm one of those that's tunnel visioned, and people talk about plan Bs, etc. Well, I just think it's just cliche, but fall forwards is what I think. You always learn from it, and rather than essentially having the plan B, I think just if you're not failing, I just don't think you're really pushing yourself enough. And that's what I saw going through that last year, that right, this is for me, because it's challenging me and it's pushing me. And like I said to you before, when I was looking at what I wanted to do, I wanted a challenge. I wanted to try and achieve again. And that's what people can search for different things of what satisfies them or their drive behind what they're doing. But for me, it was purely, I had learned quite quickly at a young age that I needed to be driven and find that replacement of, I'm never going to love something as much as I did football. I just don't think it's going to be possible, but I needed something to replace that process and really give me other aspects of my life that I enjoy.
So what was it then about financial planning that then made you think, right, okay, well, this is the career for me?
Helping the players. Yeah.
Helping the players, okay.
I think I don't want to see lads being when they're transitioning or when things get really difficult, like it did with me. I had financial pressures because I'd whittled down my savings when I was in America pretty much over that 3 years. And I don't want lads, whether they're 25, 28, 35, to not have anything to show for it, or not at least have a platform to step in to give them that freedom of go, right, I've got to re-identify myself. I've got to change, have all these changes emotionally. I've got to look at re-qualifying or retraining. And that's difficult. That's really difficult once you've been in that bubble of sport, and, you've been liked and for different things, and people will forget about you. So I just want to, that's where I knew for me that's my real driving force behind it, to actually put others in a good position, and for one day for them to turn around to me and say thanks, that's my real driving force. But obviously I'm growing my business in different directions, but that's my core, really.
Okay, brilliant. So, okay, you looked at financial planning. You understood. You got to your head around what financial planning is.
Yeah.
You could see that connection between what you were doing as this new career and how that could transfer across into the professional football arena.
Yeah,
because you, based on your own personal experience of what you've been through, that lack of kind of perhaps mentorship around your future planning.
Yeah, definitely.
there was a gap there. So when you left the game and you thought, well, I don't really want to go back to the game in the capacity of being a player, how else can I go back to the game or back to the
Yeah,
sport, if you like, and add value? And
yeah,
by putting yourself in the shoes of the individual who's then going through the process, whether or not they're starting out at 16 years old, perhaps you've got absolutely no idea about the realities of what is going to lay
yeah.
ahead of them. And
Mhm.
maybe they've got mum and dad in the corner who might not even have a clue
No,
either.
yeah.
Got an agent who just doesn't really give a crap, just probably looking to earn a
Just
few
wanting
quid.
that last, yeah, that he wants that one transfer, yeah.
So
And it's just,
you're becoming that kind of real trusted confidant of the individual, putting them at the heart of everything that you're doing and making sure that you're saying, look, you're going to be a footballer. This is what your dream is. This is what you're going to do. You've got a 2-year contract, but what's going to happen if that doesn't get,
yeah.
or
And that's what it is as well. It's just at the different ages, there's different things to be planning for. The lads that are earning the very good money now, that come across, it's going to end. It's not like some professions where you're earning that amount for 30 years. Let's say that's literally 5-6 years. Let's make it last and give you what you want. It's just there. It's literally listening to them and understanding what they want to do and helping them with it. It's not going, right, let's not get this car. It's not that. It's purely, what can we do to do this in the best way possible? And I think that's the type of advice that needs to be had with a lot of the players.
okay. So let's look at that then. So why do you think a professional footballer should have a relationship with a financial planner?
Purely to look at different ways of growing for themselves, investing in themselves, where you've been 8, 9, 10 years of age and you've done so well to get to that point. You've invested in yourself, you've invested time, you've sacrificed, you've dieted, you've done everything right. Well, why not do everything right with your finances to plan every aspect of it, your retirement? Because you've got 2 retirements, let's say, when you're mid-30s and then when you get later on in life. And let's try and spread that out rather than just live it now. There's obviously things you've got to enjoy now, and I understand that, but players need to have the right advice in their ear so that they don't come to the end of it and struggle mentally and struggle financially, and it impacts the other things in their life when football's gone. You don't want it to impact your family life or your next career because you've got to work alongside studying or something like that. Let's do the things to put yourself in the best position, whether that's at 25 that it comes to an end, 30, 35, whether it's injury or new contracts, but you can't control that. So let's control your finances and put you in the best shape possible, really. And that's just why I think players need the advice.
That's absolutely. I probably understand it's pretty much exactly
Yeah.
why they need to do it. Did you find that when you were playing football that you weren't, you had an agent, I suspect? Did they introduce you to any financial planners? Was there anything like that was introduced?
No.
Did they even talk? Did they even talk to you about your future planning or anything like that around finance?
Nothing. Which is quite funny because, I can't name clients' names obviously, but some of my clients now that are playing haven't had any financial advice. They've been pro for 5-6 years now, and they're with top agencies in the UK that, of course, it has what their services are, wealth management, financial services, but because they're not the biggest players, the Premier League players, or doesn't seem like they're as interested to give them that service. Some of these lads are still earning very good money, and they're playing Championship, League One, and they're not getting advice to make that money last and start planning ahead. And that's where I think there's a real gap in it, where there are some agencies that do a very good job and full service on their players, but there's a lot of others that it's no surprise when I speak to lads that directly that they've not had any, and it's surprising that they haven't been spoke to about that. But on the flip side, it doesn't surprise me.
Well, yeah. Why do you think they haven't been spoken to about financial planning? Why do you think that is? Do you think it's a lack of confidence in financial planners, lack of financial planners, not enough people who are looking at that niche, or not enough experienced people? Or what?
I think it's more to do with the capabilities of some of the agents and the people around them. It's a very, people around football is very take. People want a piece of the pie, whether it's it can be family members, it can be whoever, it can be girlfriends, etc. But at the end of the day, it's down to duty of care. It's purely that these young people, and planning needs to be thought about first. And you could talk about it all day, really. Whereas, I just feel like the players need to not only just take a bit of responsibility with themselves, but to really make sure that they're looking at that everything in their life's getting taken care of. So at the end of the day, they can focus on just playing football, and that's all they want to do. But then it's about having that trusted relationship with a financial advisor. Is it another person that's just trying to get a piece of the pie, if you like, where there's, if you've been there, and I'm building it myself, it's a different story, because I understand it. I've been in your position. Let's look at what we can do to help you. That's what the planning is. It's purely to do with you and nobody else.
So trust is a big issue then, perhaps, especially if you start earning that big money, that you're just a bit more dubious about who is putting their hands out asking for your business. So trust is an issue, and that's good, because again, it's that transferable skill set then from being a professional sports person to coming out of it and moving into something like financial planning, where there's a gap within that sport around it, whether that be via the agent, or the lack of knowledge from the being handed down from the football club, or the actual players' accountability for their own responsibility to look after their own finances, and perhaps lack of education around financial planning as a whole in general, because we know that that's an issue across the UK, regardless of what sport or anything you play. And I mean, we live in this instant gratification culture as well. We want things now. We want all the nice car and all of that. And I suspect when you're a 16-year-old, even more so now, young lad or girl getting into professional football, you're thinking, well, where's all the birds, and where's all the cars, and where's all the the pups, and all of that kind of thing. You don't really give a crap about when you're going to retire, because it doesn't matter, because when I retire, I'm going to be a millionaire.
That's literally what it is, but not for spending it and getting taxed in certain ways,
and
that's just, and you're not doing the right things for yourself, and you're not making your money work for you. And I think that's what it is. It's right, you've earned this, you've worked hard to get to this point. You work on yourself day in, day out to get better. Well, why not work on your finances to help them get better? It's just I just think you've got to be.
I think it's great.
I just don't know why you couldn't understand that if you sat down and spoke about it.
I think it's great. Anything where you can go back into any industry and that's about understanding your niche. And moving from football and moving into financial planning, you've got to kind of, in any business, especially where you're trying to build client relationships, regardless of what type of business it is, you've got to really go after a specific niche of people. And when you go into that niche, you do have to have an understanding of what they're thinking and what they're going through.
Definitely,
And I think your background of football, going back into football, is just going to be so beneficial. And we spoke about on the phone a couple of days ago, I mean, there's 27,000 financial advisors out there at the moment, right? Looking at 5 to 10 in the next 5 to 10 years, probably like 10,000 of them leaving. Now, nothing to do with age here, but 8% of financial advisors are below the age of 30. Majority of footballers are probably below the age of 30, right?
30,
So you look at the amount of financial advisors that will be around. So let's say 17,000. Yes, you can have more get added to the industry every single year. But what's a goddamn niche that is for you to actually get stuck into and start to work with?
Definitely. And I think
establish yourself as that expert.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on. I'm 24 myself now, and you're not going to find many advisors that are younger than myself and that have been in the industry. So that's why I feel like I have a real strength. Obviously, it's about still building it in the right way and having the right opportunities to speak to some of the people. But that's what I see for myself. I've got another 6 years until I'm hitting 30 to even be part of that. So it's something that I can really utilise over the coming years, and to grow with those lads as well. That's when I sit down and speak to some of my clients now. Is I'm not exiting the business in a couple of years. I'm not going anywhere. I'm purely here for the long term. I'm planning my life the same and going through the different steps, and I think that's huge for our generation, to have someone to move through it rather than just someone that's on the other side of it.
If we look at professional sports as well, and the training and discipline around being a professional footballer, what part of that is transferable across to becoming a financial planner, do you think?
I'd say the resilience, that's massive. I think resilience in sport, you look at it and you can have a bad game but you've got to get up again on Monday and go again at it. And that's the same with this. You know, you can have a bad meeting, or someone says, someone you thought was going to go ahead with business doesn't, and you get a slap in the face. And that's something I've learned straight away, you know, especially with the coronavirus at the start. You know, people pulled out some investments that I had lined up for me, and that was just like a reality check of, right, that's what it's going to be like. You know, you're going to get disappointments, but you're going to have, if you can keep going, whether it's good or bad, at the same mentality and the same vision, then that's definitely something that can transfer in. And probably, yeah, I'd say that's the biggest strength that you'd have as an ex-sports person. And that'd be the one that just stands out to me ahead of anything else, you know.
And is that something that you've noticed working in financial planning, that resilience is a big part of the role, that you do need to have that pick yourself up mentality? Would you say that's something you've noticed straight away, and is that why you picked that out?
Yeah, I'd say I've experienced it myself already. Like I said, you know, where I've thought some meetings have gone wrong, they've pulled out, or, you know, something that we didn't expect has happened and you're taken aback by it, and that's great. But it's, you know, there are going to be some days where you've just started out and you're not going to be as busy as you would have liked, you know. You have it, and that's the reality of it, but only you can get it out. And I think that's where lads that have played, or girls that have played sport, can really go, actually, I'm fully responsible for this now. Because when you play, I don't know, you've got an excuse, haven't you? You know, oh, my hamstring was tight, or pitch wasn't great, we just didn't have a good game as a team, he scored an own goal. There's always a reason. But for me, it's down to you now. You can really take that. And I think there's a lot of people that I've played with that have a great mentality, and if they can learn the skills and the communication, you're always communicating in sport because you're part of a team. So I think communication skills is a huge part of the role as well. Being able to talk to people, relate to different people, I think that's another transferable skill as well. Because, you know, when you're in a dressing room, I remember when we played, you know, there's lads from different types of background. Communication, you know, being relatable with different types of people is really, really key. You know, people used to joke with me, like, oh, the posh, they think I'd be posh because I'm from outside of London, for example, you know, some of the lads, because that's what it was. But, you know, there's all that kind of things. And just,
yeah,
I just really think that players have got to look outside of the box when they're looking for the next steps. And that financial planning is something where, you know, you can build your business, you can be very successful with it, you can help people, and it's just, it fits. It can help replace that love that you had for football in a different way.
Do you find as well? I was chatting to my personal trainer this morning, and we're really all about at the moment small manageable changes. So each day making a small change. So whether or not you're trying to get the best body you possibly can, I think again it goes back to that kind of instant gratification that you think you're going to be absolutely spanking because somebody on Instagram's
Instagram's been doing it for 15 years.
And you're like, right, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to do the 90-day challenge and I'm going to change my body. Where it's like, we're kind of like, over time, I'm 38 now. Yeah. I've tried all that. You know, I was like, bang it hard, go down, bang it hard, go down. Yeah. It's only right in the last sort of year and a half where I've had a kid and everything that I've really kind of focused on each day creating these small, good habits that are sort of small changes. Or like, let's say, for example, instead of hitting the gym really hard, I'll do like 25 minutes of just exercising every day. And when I built that habit, then I built it up to an hour. Then I did weights and then I did weights and running. And all of a sudden you're like just naturally getting better and better and better. I think that's what I always had from sport as well. I played a lot of sport. I always had that you just keep on it, don't you? You keep going, you keep training, you keep working hard, and you know you're just going to continue to get better. And I think one of the misconceptions of financial planning is like, well, I get the qualifications and I'm a financial planner, which is rubbish.
This is literally I find that quite hilarious. You know, when I was going through the academy and I failed exams, and I knew for a fact people would have looked at it in whatever way they wanted to look at it, or you might not be capable enough to be an advisor, etc. But, you know, leave the academy, and at the end of the day, you've all got the same qualifications. Then it's about how you communicate, how you have all the other skills, your likability, your trustworthiness, and that is it. You've got to learn. One thing that I probably say, the biggest thing I've learned about stepping into this role is, you know, when you're a footballer, you think, oh, I'm going to be the best, I'm better than him, you're going to be better. Where I stepped into this role, and, you know, the director I'm working with, and then I'm part of a pod meeting groups that we get in some of the other practices around Manchester and share ideas, etc. And they're better than me at the job. There's no doubt about it. They've got 15 years experience in finance or 20 years experience in finance. They've sat down with thousands of meetings. What have I got to say to some of them? I've got to be a sponge, and you've got to learn. And I think that's having that openness, even with clients, if there's something that props up and you're not quite sure, it's just being, I'm not quite sure on that. I've got a few people and they're experts to talk about. I can leave that with me and I can get back to you, or little things like that. And that's what I've learned from the other advisors as well. And then you just grow and build your knowledge. And one thing is, you just got to try and get better every day. Like you said there, it's with sport, it's just constant. Whereas I enjoy that. I enjoy going, right, okay, well, I don't know that, so I'm going to speak to the director who's done it for 8 years, had the whole practice for years, and learning from him, because then you've got your own identity, but you're adding bits of knowledge, etc., which is only going to be better for you and the client, which is to think that you're better than you are, or think you're a finished article is just wrong,
Every day's a school day, isn't it?
Yeah, and, massively.
I think always one of the biggest bits of advice that every financial planner gives me, anybody really, and throughout my career of setting up a recruitment company, especially for me as well, the way I learn is to observe other people. I like to observe other people. I like to listen to other people. I like to see how they do things, and I'll look at what they're doing and I'll change it to adapt it to my style. And I think, again, this conception, and sometimes it can be a bit of a barrier, I think, financial planning, the qualifications. Yes, they're required and they're needed to be able to give financial advice. That I think it's a definite requirement.
Of course,
big argument to push it towards charters. But I do think there are so many people that are very, very good at the relationship side that get put off by the qualifications. If they just stick at it, which is why academies coming up now are so good, it helps you get that qualification, because the next part of it is completely different to what you learn from the book. The other part of it is the realities of life, and being a footballer, being somebody who's worked in sport, being in that entertainment industry, the doors to building relationships are already open for you. It's just that you've got to have that mentality of going, well, where is it? How do I do it? How do I open these doors? And how do I build those relationships and add value? And
definitely.
Those are skills that you have, but you also pick up from your peers, don't you? And put it into place.
And if that technical knowledge as well, obviously you've got to improve that all the time. It's part of the industry. You need to be able to answer questions and understand everything, because they'd just be totally wrong if you didn't concentrate on that side of things as well. So it's, like you said, it's just learning the whole, becoming more rounded.
I'm going to say something here about financial planning, and again, the stereotypical financial planner being quite older, not being as connected to the youth of today. And how they communicate, and the marketing required to get hold of these types of people. Now, how have you as a younger man embraced things like Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn? How are you using that to talk to your audience? Are you using it, or are you not using it? Are you being put off using it? Are they saying you shouldn't use it? What's your view on social media to win clients?
I think social media is the way forward for it, with financial planning. I don't see many pages on Instagram of it for myself. And I was having a discussion last year when I was on the academy. I had in mind to have a social media plan for when I left the academy. And it was St James's Place at that time. It was a big no-go, a lot of the social media, LinkedIn only. But obviously the pandemic hits and everyone's trying to be experts on it now, but have you slightly missed the boat, because you've got to understand everything about it, the audience that you're connecting with. And that's where I saw it. I sat down and said, I was 23 when I was going through last year, and I was just thinking, right, so let me write down my network here and who I could potentially speak to and how I could grow it. And thinking, what's the point of me using LinkedIn here? I know that they already follow me on Instagram, or I'm friends with them and can connect to it, etc. And so Instagram was the one that I jumped on straight away. So I got the accreditation at St James's Place at the time to have social media, and then it kicked in this year where it was like, oh, you can have Instagram, etc. And I was like, well, great, because I've just started mine anyway. So so it was just one of those where whether it's right or wrong, people can make their point, but it's just about connecting with your preferred network and having content out there yourself. One of the things that I do is through lockdown, because I only had a month before lockdown in the job, so it's been football from a distance. So I've got client testimonials via video, send in, post that, where so people that are going onto my page will now see the types of people I'm working with that are similar to them. And that's the sort of way that I've been trying to grow things, really.
And also, I suppose from a growth perspective, we talk a little bit about your future within financial planning. You mentioned earlier, 24 years old. I mean, in the next 10 years, you could amass some fantastic assets under management, have a wonderful business there. And you might then start to think about growing your business and hiring maybe some people yourself and having your own part of the practice if you stayed at SJP, or if you left, come and see me. If you left and set up your own
recruiting company,
yeah, you come over, you go and set up your own business. But what's going to be really useful again for you is if you're building that relationship with the audience, especially Instagram, because they're all going to be on Instagram. They're footballers, for crying out loud. They're going to be on Instagram and TikTok or whatever. And it's about, building those relationships. And as their careers start to maybe come to an end, so there's kind of a two-pronged attack for you, isn't there? There's the fact that you can look after them in respect of their financial planning, but you can also display and show them the power of what you're doing as a job choice. And that they then look at you and think, do you know what? Actually, when I quit football, or when I stop football, or if football comes to an end, I'm going to go see Mr. Bywater and join his firm of footballing financial planners. And I think there's a real area you should certainly consider, I think, because
I think when we spoke on the phone about it, it's something that I think can definitely benefit. There are I know for a fact there are practices that do a lot of work with players that have built it over the year, but I know some of those practices, they aren't players themselves. They're maybe one player in it, but if it's solely different, you've got different group of people, younger generation, you've got the clients that you've got established, different routes that you've got established, and then you're helping people get a new career. It's another thing that would be fantastic. Obviously, it's later down the line for myself, and I'm at the front end of it right now, but it's definitely something that I'll be thinking about, is to help people transition, and then you're just a completely different group of people that's, ready for the niche that you've already got.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And as well as, if you were to have someone join your team who join your business who played for Man United, then bang, you got a connection to Man United. If you got someone come from Arsenal, you got a connection to Arsenal. So it's a great way to build that team and then sort of get into those different networks with different clubs. Yeah, I think there was a hockey there was a hockey team that I was speaking to. A financial planning firm that have hockey players. And they do exactly that. So they bring on a new hockey guy, and then because they're kind of semi-pro, so they play hockey and financial advice, and they're just it's a really cool model. And I thought, that's really cool. I thought I'd share that one with you. So
it can work. No, that's great. Yeah, I'll write that down here.
Yeah, write it down. Yeah. All right, brilliant. Okay, great stuff. So listen, I think, we've got a good insight into your background, your career, the fact that you moved into financial planning, the sort of transferable skills. It's definitely an industry that's beneficial for somebody coming from a professional background. You can move in it, you understand and you can empathize with the career of a footballer. You can definitely see the pitfalls, the things that are missing, and you can see the lack of trust perhaps. And if you've got that background, you've got that experience, and as a financial planner, then you can add value. And as you rightfully said, you wanted to leave the footballing career, but you wanted to continue to help. So what you did, you stepped back into football, you got yourself qualified, and you become a financial planner, a confidant to these guys that are in the game that need somebody there looking out for them as a financial coach, helping plan their future. Life-centered financial planning, somebody who understands. And that's what you're doing. And that's what lots of people from the professional game can do. Lots of different professional sports can do exactly that. And the skill set required to be an advisor, you're still hungry, you're still feisty, you're not sitting behind a desk with a suit on going, I'm counting money. Not, is it?
Yeah, no, it's not the same.
It's not a boring job, is it? It's not a nerdy job. No. It's like it's a relationship game. So you can be in your polo shirt going out and visiting footballers. It's just not stuffy. And I think that's what that transferable skill set and everything like that, I think it's a good industry for guys like yourself to get into. So well done, mate. I think cracking. I reckon you're going to be an absolute winner. And you said you'd never play football. You said you'd never play football again, but I was thinking about, right?
He's recruiting here, look.
No, yeah. So I've got this club that play on Sundays. No, I was thinking about doing a five-a-side game, right? SJP versus IF, independent financial advisors. So you have all of SJP footballers against the independent world footballers, and I do the financial planner.
I do know a couple of other footballers at SJP, so I think we've got quite a good team. I'll be the youngest, but probably the most unfit now. But at this point,
but who gets me on their side? Do you know what I mean? Who gets me on there? I've got
you can ref that one.
Well, my mum was the first female referee in the Woodspring lead, so she loves her. She was like, we get her along. She's good.
Yeah, you can be the liner then. You knock yourself back each time.
I'll be the water boy. All right. Well, I'm definitely not playing by the sounds of it. All right, great stuff. Listen, thank you so much for your time today, Kieran. I really appreciate that, and thanks for sharing your journey. And have an amazing rest of the week, mate.
Cheers, Sam. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Really enjoyed it.
Take care, mate. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.